Well, the Cubs finally stopped the bleeding. After 10 straight losses, they exploded late behind Ian Happ's massive night at the plate. Let's talk about it right now.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, and I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat a low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walking back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
Welcome back to the Bullpen. We get to you every week, Monday at 2 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time on the Locked On MLB channel. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify. I am Brett Chansey. He's Mike Stanton. And we bring to you big league experience, local expert analysis, and a show like no other. And that's why we like to take it back to the bullpen. Mike, we've got several topics. We span from hitters at the end, and we start with the hitter, we go to pitching, and we kind of go back and forth a lot. This is where everybody gets a little bit of attention tonight.
Yeah, this is going to be fun because we are going to talk about some of the biggest names in the sport, and we're going to talk about one of the biggest markets in the sport right here off the top, and that's the Chicago Cubs and the roller coaster season that has been 2026.
Yeah, you know, they just ended a 10-game losing streak. And what's insane is when you look at their record, you wouldn't think that a club that was over 500 the way they were at 30-26 would be a team that would fall victim to a 10-game losing streak. You saw them get swept by the Astros. And I mean, just going back over that series, they just couldn't get it done. They had opportunities. There was one game they were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. You know, and at one point it looked like they were one of the hottest teams in baseball. They were on a 20-3 run, and then suddenly 2 wins in the last 16 games. That's a brutal stretch. And Mike, you know, as a former player, that's got to be tough to go out there every day when you're losing 8, 9, 10 in a row.
Well, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to have consistency, and they have been consistently, inconsistent. You know, yes, they just ended a 10-game losing streak, but they've also had two 10-game winning streaks this season. That's why they're still 4 games over 500 the way they stand right now. And they didn't do this in an easy manner. Just to give you a couple numbers, during the losing streak, they had a league worst starter ERA at 8.46. I mean, almost giving up a run every single inning, the starting pitchers. And then their batting average was also a league worst at 185. So it wasn't that they just weren't pitching well. They also weren't hitting well. And you understand why they had a 10-game losing streak. And even in this game, you know, they blew a 3-0 lead. Then they had a 4-3 lead. They blew that lead also. But thank goodness for Ian Happ having a big day driving in 5 runs.
No, exactly. That was huge because when you look at I was looking at the game before, and I was correct. The game before, the Pirates just crushed them 12-1. And so they come back and they end up putting a 10 spot on the Pirates. And look, that's why you love baseball. I mean, you could take it to the Rangers and Astros series. The Rangers get no hit, and the next game they win 9-7. So go figure. That is what happens. And you know, Ian Happ, even though, like, when you see 2 for 6, you're like, okay, that's an okay game. But with the 5 RBI, like you said, it's huge because this is the kind of resiliency that you want to see, especially when you're on a losing streak. And a lot of times it's not your ability to fight in the beginning. It's how much fight do you have in you when you're down, and when you get punched, are you going to get back up?
Yeah, what's the old saying? It's not the fight. It's not the dog in the fight. It's the fight in the dog.
Yes.
And you know, for a team that has been as hot and cold as the Cubs have been, when you're losing like this and you're not pitching well, you're not hitting well, it looks like you don't care. Well, that's never the fact. That's never the truth. Not in Major League Baseball. Everybody is caring. Everybody's probably trying too hard. And you know, Ian in the first inning helped out with a big 2-run double to to help this Cubs get off the mat early in the game. And then it was nip and tuck. Like I said, they blew 2 leads in this game, but they're in the 7th inning. There was a 6th-run 7th inning by the Cubs. It started off with a 3-run shot by Ian Happ. There's your 5 RBIs. Then they added 3 more for the ugly crooked number, at least for the Pirates, of 6 to give them the 10 runs to win this baseball game.
Yeah, unfortunately, Paul Skeens can't pitch every single inning for the Pirates. And even look, we've seen Paul Skeens is even susceptible to, giving up the long ball.
2 times this year. 2 times this year he's had rough starts.
So what I notice in this, outside of the Ian Happ story, after Talion hit the mound, you had Webb, Maton, Thibar, and Roberts all go in and not give up a single run.
Yeah.
And they only walked 4 batters total in the game, and that's huge, especially when you see a high ERA by a pitching staff. There's probably a lot of walks going on, and we minimize the damage.
Yeah, no doubt. And to tell you the truth, it's always painful when you give up leads. It really doesn't matter whether it's the bullpen or the rotation. But when the rotation has an almost 9 ERA, I've said this and I'll continue to say this, there is no such thing as a lineup. Murderers Row, the 27 Yankees, were not a team that was designed to come from behind, because there's no such thing. And when you are playing from behind on a daily basis, like they were doing most of the time in this losing streak, it's disheartening to everyone. It's not just disheartening to the fans. It's completely disheartening to the players, because nobody is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Bullpen did a good job of holding the Pirates down. The Pirates have scored some runs this year. But yeah, this was a huge weight lifted off this team. Now, what does this mean going forward? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but at least now they could get a good night's sleep and come in tomorrow knowing that, they won a game yesterday, and now maybe they can win a couple in a row and get on a hot streak.
And this is why you enjoy the 162 as a player, because when you look around at clubs that are right around where they are, San Diego and St. Louis garner the last 2 wild card spots. And I know I'm talking about wild card spots in May, but I'm just trying to give some perspective to where they are, because they're not the only team that's reeling. The Cardinals last 10 games, they're 3-7. The Padres last 10 games, they're 4-6. And so while you can't worry about that, you got to know that everything's not going right in everybody else's world too. And that's why you've got to just put your head down and you've got to work. You've got to grind out the at bat. If you're on the mound, if you walk the guy, you've got to put it behind you. If you go out and you don't shove, the next time you get called on, you can't think about that last time you're on the mound. And that's what it's about. I heard a coach one time say there's a difference, all the pros that we've seen in every sport, there's good athletes and there's great athletes.
Sure.
The great athletes were the good athletes that were able to get out of their own way and able to get past their mistakes. And that's what baseball is all about. You got to get past your mistakes and your failures.
Yeah, and the Cubs, with this win, like you said, they're 4 games over 500. They're 4.5 games behind. They're actually just percentage point behind the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals are reeling right now also. Yep. Losers of 4 straight. They're 7-3 in their last 10. But everybody's looking up at the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee Brewers are playing very good, winner of 3 in a row, 33-20. So again, this Brewers team is a team that kind of revels in the idea of being an underdog. Keep talking about the Cardinals, keep talking about the Cubs. We're just going to keep winning baseball games up here just north of Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they are playing some great baseball. And look, I've obviously never been a Brewers fan because I'm not from Milwaukee, but those are one of those teams that
I bet you had a brat though.
Oh yes, definitely fan of that. But the thing is, that's a team that I wouldn't mind seeing beating the Dodgers or something.
Oh,
like
sure.
That. Well,
really, is there a team out there that you wouldn't like to see beat the Dodgers?
That's true. That's true.
Be honest.
No offense, Dodgers fans. No offense. But you know what? In our next segment, Mike, we are going to talk about a left-hander out of Philadelphia that passed a franchise record that stood for 115 years. Next. Hello, everybody. I want to tell you about our friends at Rougier. Go to rougier.com/lockedonnhl to get 15% off ED treatments for a limited time only. The NHL playoffs are here, where every shift matters and every moment is intense and the pressure is at its highest. I don't know if you're pulling for the Montreal Canadiens or who you're going for, but no matter who you're going for, performance matters, whether it's on the ice or off the ice. And this is where Rougier comes in. They offer treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. Their top option, Rougier Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves right under your tongue. It works fast, often in about 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours. And they also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. So head to rougier.com/lockedonnhl and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/lockedonnhl for 15% off. Rougier, performance medicine for men. And make sure you go check out the Everydayer Club. If you want ad-free episodes of this podcast and you want to become a part of the members-only Discord with people like myself and others around the country, go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer.
Welcome back to the Bullpen, presented by the Locked On Network. So now we're going to go to Philly. And Philly had some very good starting pitching. The top of the rotation, you'd have to say, is probably Zach Wheeler. They have a left-hander, though, that was only second in the National League Cy Young Award voting last year, and that's Christopher Sanchez. He's at it again here in 2026.
That's right. He just broke a record, okay, that stood for 115 years, like I mentioned before the break, 44 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings. You know, Mike, when I was thinking about this, when I was prepping for the show, it's like we talked about scoreless innings and streaks a lot. This is really good for pitching. This is really bad for the hitters.
Sure. No doubt. I mean, you look, we've talked about this before, the big league average now. So that means, the median, the middle, it's like 240, 242, something like that. I mean, you go back 30 years ago, you're hitting 242, you might be losing your job unless you're hitting a lot of home runs. Big league average back then would have been, somewhere in the 265 to 275 range. And so, what does that mean? That means pitching has been good all the way across the board. And Sanchez has just been absolutely outstanding. I mean, when you start talking about names like Grover Cleveland, he had a 41 inning streak back in 1911. I mean, when you're going all the way back to the start of the sport. I mean, really,
Yeah.
The live ball era, all that kind of stuff. That's how long he has thrown up zeros. And he's officially now, with his 7 scoreless innings that he just pitched, he is at 44 2/3 innings. Okay, that is the 7th longest scoreless streak in Major League Baseball since 2020. His ERA is now down to 147, which is amazing, but we're about to talk to somebody that's got an even lower ERA.
And this is what's amazing. Now, Grover Cleveland Alexander is not President Grover Cleveland. So I will make that distinction. I looked it up because I was curious.
Yeah.
But I would venture to say that Christopher Sanchez is probably doing it in more commanding fashion than Grover Cleveland Alexander did, because back then pitching was a completely different game. I mean, he's throwing harder, and I mean, the amount of players he's facing, he has worked around defensive mistakes early. And so he really has been challenged in this scoreless inning streak. And I think that's important to recognize, that not only is the pitcher on record getting the credit, but the defense behind him. I remember my dad telling me as a young pitcher, listen, you don't need to worry about anything. You pitch, you worry about pitching. The defense will take care of the rest. Because right. I would literally say, you subbed in this guy, he's playing third base, he can't. My dad would say, no, don't say it. He goes, you throw, let them worry about the fielding. Trust them.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, baseball is a team sport, which is true, but there's a second half of that statement. And the second half is the only way the team wins is if all the individuals do their job. And as a pitcher, you have seven guys behind you and one guy in front of you. They're all there to help. And unless you're striking everyone out, unless you're Sid Finch back, the April Fool's joke from decades ago, you're just you have to have help from your friends, from your teammates, and they have played mostly very good defense behind him, but he still gets the credit. He's still putting up the zeros, but yes, it's definitely a group effort.
And I will say this: Grover Cleveland Alexander was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1938. So I mean, he pitched from 1911 to 1930. And elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So Christopher Sanchez, he signed that big contract. You and I talked about him early in the season, but he's doing great things. And heck, might as well jump from Philly all the way over to LA, because Shohei Ohtani is upsetting opposing fans and offenses and defenses once again, because he's hitting leadoff home runs again.
Well, the funny thing is, people were wondering what was wrong with him offensively. That he had a couple starts that Dave Roberts and company, they were saying, hey, we want to give him a middle break. He was in a slump. He was striking out a whole. Now, listen, this is another, a guy like Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. These are guys that have, big swings, big power, which also comes with those is big swing and miss. And they were giving him a mental break. Now, the crazy thing is he has done nothing but dominate on the mound. Well, guess what? He found his stroke again. For the second straight start in a row, he has started the game off with a home run. Not that he gave up a home run, it's that he's hit home runs. And then, oh yeah, by the way, he's just gone out and completely shoved with an ERA of well less than 1. His ERA is, I think, 0.73. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. It's like, come on,
he's making a mockery of Major League Baseball.
Well, growing up, I had a good friend of mine, David Williams. I haven't talked to him in years, but anything David did, he was good at. And we had gotten into playing tennis. Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, and all those guys were big in the 90s. And so we picked up tennis. Well, we got pretty good. Well, David took it to the next level. And he was a state qualifier his sophomore year in tennis. So, I mean, you just got guys like Ohtani. I'm not saying David is Ohtani, but those kind of people, sometimes what they do, they're just excellent at it. And that's why it's fun to watch them. And that's why even if you hate the Dodgers, even if you can't stand LA, you still have to sit back and admire what Ohtani can do, because that's tough. You go out there and you pitch, and then you go out there and hit. The mindset's different. You got to rush sometimes. They got to check your hands. You got to get the batting gloves on. You got to get the helmet on. You got to take warm up swings. So yeah, he's just continuing to do great and amazing things on the mound, and I'm not upset about it because I have a lot of his rookie cards, and that will do well for me in a few years.
Well, listen, he is the best baseball player we've ever seen. I think I don't think, even though he hasn't had a long career, he's already won 4 MVPs. Okay, he hasn't won a Cy Young yet, but he has been in the voting. He's doing things seemingly on a day-to-day, start-to-start basis that we have never seen before. And I don't think it's a stretch. Even as great as Babe Ruth was, who Babe Ruth was also a two-way player, he only did it for a couple years. Shohei has set just about every record there is. And seemingly every time he goes out there, he's doing it again. So it's really cool to see. So even if you don't like the Dodgers, even if you don't like Shohei because he's a Dodger, you got to respect what he's doing.
That's right. And we know he had to come back from a surgery, and, he's here. Well, you know what? In our next segment, we're going to talk about someone who, after their first starts coming off a Tommy John recovery, he is looking like his old self again.
Welcome back to the Bullpen, presented by the Locked On Network. So we went from Philly to LA. Now we're going back to the East Coast. We're going to the Big Apple, and we're going to talk about a former Cy Young Award winner that seemingly is throwing maybe that well again.
Yeah. Typically it's like, oh, you're your old self again. That's usually like some old codger that like just got out of the hospital. No, this is like,
right.
This is Garrett Cole, 6 2/3
All right, crotchety old man. Yeah. That's not who Garrett Cole is.
No. 10 strikeouts, 0 walks, 79 pitches, and 59 strikes. That's pretty freaking efficient, Mike.
Yes, it is.
And Garrett Cole, when he gets into attack mode, he gets like he has a switch that flips. I mean, I've talked about it before. I saw it in person in 2019 when he was with the Astros, when him and Verlander should have been co-Cy Youngs. That's all I'll say about that.
Verlander got robbed.
Yeah, but watching him get 15 strikeouts in a playoff game was just watching a guy turn it on and not look back. And that's really what the Yankees, that's what they brought Garrett Cole in to do, and so watching him have these first 2 starts. Now, the first start he came back, he didn't get the win, but I don't think Garrett Cole
2 shutout innings though.
That's right. That's right. So that's the thing. You got the shutout, you got momentum going. We saw Aaron Judge come off of his homerless streak recently, and so things might be going in the right direction for the Yankees. The Yankees aren't terrible this year. They are one of the, they are 34-22. They're one of the few teams in the American League that are over 500. And even though they are 6-4 in their last 10, they've won 4 in a row. So having Garrett Cole back, it just makes them all the more stronger. And you know what? They need him for the postseason, because the last time he pitched in the postseason, it was a disappointment. And I know Garrett Cole wants to get back there and kind of have some revenge starts.
Oh, well, there's no doubt about that. And I think you could say that for anybody, but especially the Yankees, because when you put on the pinstripes, even though they haven't won a whole lot of World Series, there's only one expectation when you play in the Big Apple and you play in the Bronx, and that is winning World Series. And, Derek Jeter started saying that very early in his career. And, a lot of people would roll their eyes, but that was truly the approach that, we had a good enough team back then that if we didn't win, then it wasn't a successful season. Now, the term successful season means different things to different people. It's not win the World Series for everyone, but sometimes maybe it's just being over 500. Maybe it's being in the hunt in September. Maybe it's being a wild card team. Maybe it is being a World Series champion, but it's one of those things that when you put on the pinstripes in New York, you are expected to win. And Garrett Cole is right there with everyone else. He wants to get back to the postseason, but you got a lot of baseball to play here in the regular season before we get there.
There is. Yeah. You've got, when I sit here and look at where we are right now, everybody is at 50, 40 something, 47 games, you know what I'm saying?
About a quarter of the way, maybe a little more. Yeah.
And a lot of things are going to change. The power might shift a little bit. You're going to see big trades happen. You're going to see teams that are out of it offload players. You're going to see maybe big additions to some of these teams. And, this is a year where I think in the American League, where you typically don't see the Rays make trades, they may actually make some trades this year. Good. They're 34-19. And if you can add someone, bringing back Garrett Cole is like an acquisition in itself. And, and they've got a great rotation. So
they've had 2 of them because they just bought Carlos Rodon too. Now he hasn't pitched nearly as well as Garrett Cole, but you're talking about another top flight, ace stuff type pitcher. And so,
Right.
yeah, they did lose Max Fried, and we haven't gotten a time frame, or at least I haven't heard a time frame on Max just quite yet. But about the time they lost him, that was right around the time that Garrett came back, and Garrett has picked up throwing the ball as well, at least putting up the numbers as well as he has in the past. So it's good to see that after spending all that time on the IL, all that time rehabbing, all that time questioning whether he was going to be able to come back, because there's always that question for the guys that have long stints on the IL. He's answered those questions in spades right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to talk about Yordan Alvarez a little bit with the Astros, because last year he probably couldn't have had a more disappointing season. And all of that was because he wasn't on the field that much.
Right.
Dealing
and
with
when
injuries.
he wasn't completely healthy.
Exactly. Right. So last year was a wash. I mean, comeback player of the year, maybe. I mean, Christian Walker has been a little bit of a slump lately. Maybe he's also in the mix too.
Sure.
But, John Heyman, I have a bone to pick with him. He didn't even have Yordan Alvarez in his top 5 MVP right now. He literally leads in batting average in the American League. He's tied for the lead in home run. He's second in hits. He's second in RBI. He is first in OPS. He's first in slugging. I mean, I'm sorry, John Heyman, but you must hate the Astros, because there's no way that you leave Yordan Alvarez out of your top 5 right now. And I know it's too early to determine who's going to be the MVP, because a lot can happen. But Mike, this guy is not just a home run hitter. He's hitting .312, and he can hit all kinds of stuff.
He can hit anything. I mean, and when he's and what's been so impressive about Yordan is, this is the Yordan we saw when he first got called up. And we've seen a great Yordan in between that. But 2019, when he got called up and he hit 50 home runs between the minor leagues and the major leagues, 25 in both stops, winning unanimous Rookie of the Year. I mean, you thought this guy was going to be, the next Barry Bonds. And, there's been leg injuries, the knees the first couple years. Recently, it has been a hand injury, a wrist injury that just wasn't healing. He was trying to play through it. He's completely healthy now, and we're seeing just how good Yordan can be. And as far as being the MVP, I do know John from way back. I don't think he hates the Astros. I think this may have been, maybe I'm going to make a little bit of a concession here and say maybe he just overlooked. But I haven't seen his list, so I'd want to see the list. But I would venture to say that all the players that are on that are probably winning teams. So here's the question. Is it player of the year, or is it most valuable player? That's a conversation we have, every offseason when we start looking at these awards.
Yeah, that's true. He had Ben Rice, Aaron Judge, who all rank below Yordan Alvarez.
Right.
He also had, I believe, Nick Kurtz. He had Yamamoto, which I totally get that. And then
the problem with Yamamoto is that Yamamoto is a pitcher. The pitchers have an award.
No, I'm sorry. Not Yamamoto. Well, Murakami, not Yamamoto. I'm sorry.
Murakami. Okay.
Murakami. Yeah. I apologize.
Yeah.
My bad.
I mean, the White Sox are playing better than the Astros, but they're still not a truly contending club. I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things. We're a quarter of the way in. All Yordan can do is just keep being Yordan. All that stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah. I think it's all good, but what I love is that he's hit 4 home runs off of Jacob deGrom in his career.
And Jacob deGrom is still, even though he's 37 or 38 years old, he's still absolutely filthy. He's still one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. And the Astros have really taken care of him. His last 2 starts, they've hit 6 home runs off of him. Now, in his previous start, not this past one, but in his previous start, he gave up 4 runs, 4 solo home runs. But, hey, they still drove the ball out of the ballpark. But Jacob deGrom is still one of the better pitchers in this league.
So here's an amazing stat for the Astros, okay? 73 home runs this season, 53 of them solo.
That's a problem. You know, I know you go back to the years that the JV, Justin Verlander, was here in Houston. He had no problem getting up solo home runs. I had coaches tell me back when I was first starting, when I was still a starting pitcher in the minor leagues and you were being groomed to pitch in the big leagues, solo home runs don't usually beat you. Sometimes they do, but they don't usually beat you. What beats you is the crooked number home runs. So when you bear down with guys on base, you know, and we would see JV, you know, in his Cy Young Award year, he gave up some runs. He gave up some home runs, but they were all solo shots.
So get this, the Yankees, okay, the Yankees are 34 and 22. Mm-hmm. They are slightly worse than the Rays. The Yankees have only given up 191 runs. They've scored 280. The Rays have only scored 246 and given up 222. And I saw a breakdown of a guy who has a podcast called Baseball Doesn't Exist. And he basically talked about how these metrics of how the Rays are winning, how they are like small ball, steals, bunts. I mean, they're doing it. They're not hitting it with a ton of power. They're just getting guys on and scoring guys. And they're just playing simple baseball.
They're actually playing old school baseball.
Exactly.
What you would call is small ball. They are not hitting home runs hardly at all. They're among the cellar dwellers in that stat, but that doesn't matter. Home runs do not win baseball games. Runs win baseball games. And
that's right.
When you have a pitching staff that's doing very well and you're scratching, you're playing tight ball games every night, that can be a little bit draining on especially your pitching staff, especially your bullpen. But hey, bottom line, a win's a win. It doesn't matter how you get it. And the Tampa Bay Rays have had plenty of those this year.
Yeah, they have. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to Back to the Bullpen. This has been a great show. We have covered pretty much every story I think we could in a 32-minute time span. But
we covered the country a couple times.
We did. We only if I could get miles and steps on my watch, that would be nice. Burn some calories in the process. But seriously, want to thank y'all for tuning in. This is Back to the Bullpen. You can find us Monday through Friday on the Locked On MLB channel on YouTube, Apple, Google, or Spotify. And if you want to join the Everydayer Club, check that out. LockedOnPodcast.com/Everydayer for ad-free episodes and become a member of the members only Discord there. Look, we got the weekend coming up pretty soon. If you're near a ballpark, you're traveling, go catch a game. And like I always say, play ball.
Adios.